Okay, for the second video, I'm going to be reviewing how to graph a parabola. So we've been working with quadratics for quite a while, going back to beginning of October, and we should know that the general format for a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, we should know that the very first thing that we need to do to find the vertex, the very, very important point of this equation, is to use the formula negative b divided by 2 multiplied by a. And once we get that answer, once we get whatever this is, we're going to plug our answer in for both of the x's, replace both x's with our answer, and then work out. And what this will do is it'll give us an ordered pair. Our ordered pair is going to be our x value from our formula, which was the answer for our formula, and our y value is going to be the solution when we plug in negative b over 2a for x. Now, I'm going to be looking at this a little bit differently than we have in the past, just because I know some people had some trouble with it, and if you feel comfortable with the older way, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay, with a general quadratic, y is equal to x squared. We've previously made a table for that, x and y, where we had negative 2, 4, negative 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 4. And we could continue to make more and more points in this table by just taking whatever we plug in for x and simply squaring it. So whatever number we plug in for x, like negative 2 squared would be positive 4. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. 0 squared would be 0. 1 squared is 1. 2 squared would be 4. If we kept going, we'd have 3 squared, which would be 9. 4 squared, which would be 16. So on and so forth. However, larger numbers are probably not going to really fit on a lot of graphs. So that's why I'm not going to be focusing on those. If I put those points on the graph, negative 2, 4, negative 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 4. And I'm going to go ahead and put 3, 9 on the graph to give myself a nice little parabola. And then I'd also have a point that would be reflected. Now what I'm going to be focusing on today is a generalized pattern. How do I go from my vertex here in the center to each of the points? Well, I can see to go to my first point, I'm going to go right 1 and I'm going to go up 1. To go to my next point, I would go right 1 and then up 3 spaces. To get to my next point, I would go right 1 space and up 5 spaces. And we can kind of see a pattern emerging here, where we go 1, 3, 5 on our up. Our next one will be right 1 up 7, right 1 up 9, so on and so forth, where it's going to continue increasing by 2 on that. Now, the biggest thing to note is our a value. Okay, if a is positive, then that means our graph will open up. If a is negative, however, that means our graph will open down. So how that's going to affect these little instructions over here is, instead of going up, we will just go down on each one. So we're going to go over just a couple of very quick examples so we can kind of see how this is going to be set up. So our first equation, we have y is equal to x squared minus 4x plus 6. The first thing that I must find is I must find the vertex. The formula to find the vertex is x is equal to negative b divided by 2 multiplied by a. So when I compare that to my general form, ax squared plus bx plus c, I can see, well, b lines up with the negative 4. Make sure you're careful with the sign. A doesn't match up with a number, so we're going to say that a is 1. So when we plug our numbers in, we have a negative of -4 divided by 2 times a, which was 1. Okay, we simplify that, so negative of -4 would be positive 4. 2 times 1 is 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So there's our x value. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our equation, y is equal to x squared minus 4x plus 6. We're going to replace each of the x's with positive 2, which was the answer when we already started to find the vertex. And then we simply work it out. So when we go to work this out, we know 2 squared is 4 minus 8 plus 6. So I would rearrange it where I do 4 plus 6 is 10, minus 8 would be 2. So we've got 2 points here, or we've got 2 values here. We had our x value, which is 2, and our y value, which is 2. So for our ordered pair, we have 2, comma 2. And that's the location of our vertex. So from the origin, I'm going to positive 2 on the x, positive 2 on the y, and that's going to give me my starting point. Now the next thing that I look at, well, a is positive. It's a positive 1. So we said a pattern that we could use in regards to this would be from our vertex going right 1, up 1, and that will give us a point. From our next point, we're going to go right 1, up 3 spaces, and that'll give us another point. From this point, we could go right 1, up 5 spaces, and that would give us another point. And we could kind of connect the dots, but that only gives us half a parabola. So like we said, from the vertex we could reflect that over to generate more points going to the other direction, which will give us a nice little parabola like that. Okay, so our next equation, we've got y is equal to x squared minus 6x plus 4. So this is just another similar example to the last problem where I want to do the exact same thing. I want to start by finding my vertex. So for my vertex, I know the formula I need to use is negative b divided by 2 times a. So I'm going to kind of compare this to our general format, ax squared plus bx plus c. You can see, well, a doesn't match up with a number, so I'm going to have to say a is 1. I'm going to say b lines up with the negative 6. And from that information, I'm just going to kind of fill in the formula. So I've got a negative of negative 6 divided by 2 times a, which we just said was 1. So I'm going to simplify that. So at the top, a negative of negative 6, 2 negatives make a positive. At the bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. Now I'm going to simply divide it. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now we take our equation, y is equal to x squared minus 6x plus 4. So that's the equation I was given at the very beginning. And for x, I'm going to use 3, which was the answer that we just got. And at which point I'm going to work it out. So 3 squared is 9. 6 times 3 would be 18 plus 4. I continue to work that out, and I get negative 5. So what that's going to do is I've now got my starting point. Okay, our x value of positive 3 and our y value of negative 5. So that's going to give me my starting point. Positive 3 on the x, negative 5 on the y, gives me my vertex. Now we just said we can use an alternate pattern on this, where we're going right 1, up 1, then right 1 more, up 3, then right 1 more, and up 5. So right 1, up 1 puts us our next point. From there I would go right 1 more space and up 3 spaces, which gives me a second point. And from there I'm going to go right 1, up 5 spaces, which gives me another point. I can connect the dots and get a nice smooth parabola. Now, to get the other half of the parabola, I would simply reflect it. So I go left 1, up 1, left 1, up 3, left 1, up 5. And each of these points should kind of match a point from the other side. Okay, so let's look at the next example. Okay, y is equal to x squared plus 8x subtract 2. So again, step 1, we're going to find the vertex. The formula to find the vertex is negative b divided by 2 times a. So we're looking for ax squared plus bx plus c. Again, a doesn't match up with a number, so we're going to say a is 1. B this time matches up with a positive 8. So we go to fill in the formula. We have a negative positive 8 divided by 2 times a, which we just said was 1. We start to simplify it. We've got negative 8. 2 times 1 would be 2. Negative 8 divided by 2 would be negative 4. So there's our x value that we're going to substitute into the equation to get our y value. So y is equal to negative 4 squared, or we've got our x squared, plus 8 times x minus 2. So I'm going to replace x on both of these with negative 4. Reminder, if you do use a calculator to work this out, you must put negative values inside parentheses when you're substituting it. It needs to be written in the calculator exactly as I've got it written here on the screen. So negative 4 squared would be positive 16. 8 times negative 4 would be negative 32, and then we have minus 2 more. So 16 minus 32, we're looking at negative 18. So when we look at our coordinates, our x and our y, our x value we've got is negative 4, and our y value is negative 18. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of scale my axis on this one so it fits. So I'm going to go negative 2, negative 4, negative 6, negative 8, so on and so forth, all the way down the page, just so I can make sure that my graph fits. And then I know that since a is a positive 1, that means I'm going to be going right 1, up 1, right 1, up 3, right 1, up 5. Now, I want to be careful on this, because when I go right 1, up 1, my scale on my y-axis is by 2's. So I don't want to go up too much. I'm only going to go up half a block here. So I'm going to go up right one space, and I'm going to go up about half a block, which would put us at negative 17. And then from there, I'm going to go right one space, and I'm going to go up 3 blocks. Or I'm going to go up 3, so I'm going to go up 1 to get us to negative 16, and then I'm going to go all the way up to negative 14. And we would just kind of continue the pattern. So right 1, up 2, 4 and a half, so up 5, and connect the dots. And then we would reflect it going back the other way. And there's our parabola. Okay, now I'm going to be doing one more example of graphing parabolas. Okay, so this time we have y is equal to negative x squared plus 5. So when I look at this, I know my first step is I want to look at find the vertex. X is equal to negative b divided by 2 times a. So when I look at my equation, ax squared plus bx plus c, I can see, well, a lines up with the negative sign, and since there's no number here, I'm going to say a is negative 1. But there's no b term here. So c has to line up with this positive 5. So what that's going to tell me, since there's no bx term, is I'm going to use 0x here in the middle. So we have a negative of 0 divided by 2 multiplied by negative 1. But we can't have a negative 0, so that's just 0. 2 times negative 1 would be negative 2. 0 divided by negative 2 is just 0. So there's our x value. So to just kind of continue this on, we need to find our y value. So we know we take our equation, this y is equal to negative x squared plus 5. We're going to substitute 0 in for x and work it out. So 0 squared is going to be 0. So we just have 0 plus 5, which is 5. So our starting point on this, we have 0 for the x, and we have 5 for the y. So I'm going to start at 0, 5 on this graph. But the other thing is I'm going to be looking at my pattern. We've been saying it's right 1 and up 1. However, this time a is negative 1. A is at negative. So instead of right 1, up 1, we're going to be going right 1, down 1. And then I'm going to go right 1, down 3. Then I'm going to go right 1, down 5. And if I wanted to continue, I go right 1, down 7, right 1, down 9, so on and so forth. So from this starting point, I'm going right 1, down 1, put a point. From our next point, we're going to go right 1, down 1, 2, 3 spaces, put a point. From here, I'm going to go right 1 space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces down. I'm going to connect the dots. I'm going to try to connect the dots, and that'll give me my half of the parabola. I'm going to reflect it back the other way. And connect the dots and do a little bit better job on that side. And that gives me my graph. So I hope this review has helped a little bit, especially in clarifying some misconceptions with the graphing the parabolas. And now you need to watch solving linear quadratic systems.